Americans for Fair Taxation presents the Weekly Chairman's Report, written by Steve Hayes, president of Americans for Fair Taxation, and recorded by Bob Paxton, a volunteer with the Florida FAIRtax Educational Association. And now, this week's Chairman's Report.
Hello, I'm Bob Paxton with the AFFT Chairman's Report for Friday, January 22nd, 2021. Biden tax plans, Puerto Rico, and the case for the fair tax. An article by economist Milton Ezrati discussed some of the likely income payroll tax code changes that the Biden administration will be seeking. Among them, the corporate tax rate will increase from 21% to 28%, a 15% minimum tax for corporations with over $100 million in profit will be assessed if deductions would otherwise allow them to pay less than 15%. Itemized deductions will be capped for those earning over $400,000 a year at 28% of adjusted gross income, and there will be a 12.4% payroll tax on all income over $400,000. The individual mandate to purchase health insurance will be reinstated. For people earning more than $1 million per year, capital gains tax rates will increase from 23.8% to 39.6%. Instead of allowing heirs to defer the tax on appreciated assets they receive, taxes will be due when the heirs receive them, and it's anticipated that these changes will raise an additional $250 billion a year. Now, directing most of the tax increases at people making incomes over $400,000 is red meat to their supporters who don't want to pay more in taxes, but it has some significant drawbacks, and here are just a few. It's like picking a fight with the biggest guy in the schoolyard. That normally doesn't end well. The people targeted for these higher taxes can and do pay lobbyists, and they have the ear of their elected federal officials. These people also generally have the ability to defer income, and by capping the itemized deductions, including charitable deductions at 28%, it's likely that charitable donations from this group, who now give the most, will decrease. Puerto Rico, here they come. Puerto Rico is a U.S. territory, and its residents have special tax benefits. If a U.S. citizen moves to Puerto Rico and operates his or her corporation in Puerto Rico, they can have a 4% corporate tax rate, not the present 21%. Puerto Rico residents pay zero tax on capital gains and passive investment income like dividends. If you're paid a salary by your Puerto Rican corporation, you will have a maximum rate of 25%. And of course, since Puerto Rico residents are covered by Social Security and Medicare, they will have the payroll taxes of 7.65% deducted from their paychecks. A report by the IRS to Congress concluded that it had calculated that 647 U.S. citizens that were now taking advantage of Puerto Rican tax incentives paid $557,978,112 in taxes over the previous 5 years prior to their move. If the tax rates on the wealthy increase as proposed, the number of people who will transfer their assets to places like Puerto Rico will only rise. Now let's look at the fair tax solution. More and more people outside of D.C. are realizing how incredibly disruptive it can be if people have to change their plans every time control of Congress and the presidency switches from one party to another. Now, many of these people have not been supporters of the fair tax, but it's a mistake to assume that almost all of the people who do oppose the fair tax are acting for selfish or even ignorant reasons. They mistakenly believe that enacting the fair tax will be a hindrance to achieving the results that they sincerely believe will help America. Now, one example of this could be universal health care. Now, their beliefs in most cases are just as sincere as our beliefs. Now, they're the kind of people with whom you share many similarities. They have families they love, they believe in God, they like sports, they want their children to do well, and if you avoid talking politics, they're pleasant company. Now, sure, there are some who oppose the fair tax because they make money off the present income payroll tax system. And yes, there are politicians on both sides of the aisle who like to promise tax benefits to their supporters and also incite their voters by painting dire pictures of what their opponents' tax policies are likely to do. Now, the truth is that almost all Americans believe that the federal government cannot continue to borrow money and just keep increasing the debt indefinitely. Now, both the fair tax and the income payroll tax system collect revenue. Neither dictates where it is spent. Now, no one disputes that the fair tax is much easier on the taxpayer. Our job is to show the sincere people who oppose the fair tax that passing the fair tax and eliminating the burdensome income payroll tax system will not keep them from accomplishing the objectives that they believe will help people. For example, if you want to get money to people who now qualify for the Earned Income Tax Credit, the simplest way is to increase the amount of the prebate to this group, and then instead of having to wait 12 months to get their money, recipients get it every month. If you want to incentivize charitable giving, the fair tax is a great way to do that. By eliminating federal withholding and payroll taxes, the fair tax puts more money in people's pockets, and when people have more money, they're more likely to give to charity. And if you believe that some groups are not charitable, like political action groups, then just make them charge for and remit the fair tax on all donations. Now, while this is heresy to fair tax purists, a Democrat senator once told me that the only way he would support its enactment would be if large purchases like homes had a higher fair tax rate than everyday purchases. In conclusion, Abraham Lincoln was known for his ability to avoid being drawn into arguments or even defenses of his own character. He wanted to remain clearly focused on saving the Union and ensuring the end of slavery. Now, one of his friends was present when Lincoln met with a cotton broker who was seeking a permit to ship cotton out of New Orleans. Lincoln listened to the man and decided to grant the permit. When the man left, his friend was livid. He said, "Don't you know that this man is your enemy? He's telling everyone that you're a baboon and an idiot. He's your enemy, and you should not be helping him but trying to destroy him." Lincoln just smiled and said, "Do I not destroy an enemy by making him a friend?" Now, people who don't support the fair tax are not our enemies. We should look at the things on which we agree and work to make them not only friends, but supporters of the fair tax by explaining to them why it helps them accomplish their vision for America. So if you have friends who don't know about the fair tax, send them to FAIRtax.org. Have them watch the whiteboards under how it works, and if they agree, ask them to please join us. Then, contact your members of Congress and the President and demand that Congress pass the fair tax, the only truly fair tax.
This has been the Weekly Chairman's Report, written by Steve Hayes, President of Americans for Fair Taxation. Check back every week for news and information about the fair tax, and learn why the fair tax should replace our antiquated federal income tax system. If you'd like to receive a copy of the Chairman's Report in your inbox every week, sign up at FAIRtax.org.